the Zen masters used to teach their disciples about perfection. Very much the truth, what we're talking about. What is it? And they would have this particular lesson for the monks, for the people who were trying to gain enlightenment. And the master would say to the disciples, I'm going to hold up... what would happen actually physically is they would take them to the pottery area. And the lesson was that you had to make the perfect bowl. That's all the master would say. In order to pass this particular lesson, or this rite, this part of the ritual, you have to create the perfect bowl. And we don't care how long it takes you or what happens, but, And so the pupils would go off and they tried to make this perfect bowl out of the clay. And then they'd bring it to the master. And of course, he'd be dismissing one after the other, going, okay, good, yeah, right, move on. Not perfect. Until basically every single pupil had not gained the perfection. And so finally one of the disgruntled, pupils go, hey, what the hell is this, we got, 300 students here, and, you keep on telling us it's not the perfect one, then you make it. And so the teacher in the story lifted one of the bowls and held it up, right? And then in a split second, he dropped it as if by accident, and it smashed on the floor into like hundreds of pieces. And he asked one of the students to sweep up all the pieces and take it over to another part of the school where the gold masters were, where they made the jewelry or where they melted gold, right? And he said, ask the goldsmith to glue all the pieces back together for us and use gold to do it. After a couple of hours or days, whatever, the bowl returns and the master holds it up in front of the class and goes, here is the perfect bowl. Because it embodies not only creation, which is what you all guys were doing, it also embodies destruction. As your breath does, as the creation does, as nature does. And in the Western world, and maybe even for hundreds and hundreds of years, we have lost this. We understand it intellectually perhaps, and I'm not including everybody, I'm not making a general statement here. But on the whole, we are a very acquisitive people. We've been mind-controlled into something that's actually quite destructive. The destruction we're going towards is the destructiveness of complete yang mentality, complete acquisition. And I mean that even in a psychological way. We've lost the ability to be feminine. We've lost the ability to understand this deconstructive principle in life. And yet, that happens in our lives all the time. So half the neurosis that you see, half the psychological and emotional meltdown, from children to husbands and wives, when somebody leaves, when somebody dies, when a job is lost, when fame passes you by, when material wealth is lost, you see, whatever it might be, a great sportsman being eclipsed by other younger guys, or a beautiful model saying, oh yeah, they don't want to know me now, whatever it might be, all that fallout and depression and chaos and anxiety and frustration is born out of the fact that we cannot handle this flow, this yin and yang, this idea that your time comes and then it moves on, do something else, change. There's a movement, there's a rhythm in life. And we have lost this ability because we always fixed. It's the same thing for science. This goes into lots of different areas. And so we've forgotten how to make that perfect bowl. We've forgotten how to come into a relationship with this deconstruction. And yet, as I said, all around us, that force exists. That force is not going to stop. It's going to be in our lives. It's happening every day. Millions of cells in our bodies die. People do leave. Change will occur. So if we don't fall in love with that change and work with it, then we remain static. And unfortunately, nature does not permit anything to be static. And if you continue to be static, if you absolutely go too far with that model, then nature arranges it so that forces will come in that we might then erroneously label destructive, when in fact those are the agents of greater healing. And in fact, that's why sanity and sanitize, I've always said, are very connected. Because forces that we now, in this age, in this world right now, think are destructive, are actually not destructive. We are destructive. Our thinking has become destructive. Our thinking has become anti-life. Pseudo-love, pseudo-life, pseudo-reality. And therefore, the other forces that are really living and vital, that take care of all the universe, the stars, the leaves, the trees, the water, that cycle is in perfect unison and balance. And it's going to make sure that we also fall into balance. So as I said earlier on, it ties into the fact that if a person meets psychosis, or if they meet a type of breakdown, in a much broader context, you also have to look at why that is. Maybe that person has not dealt with their impurities. Maybe that person hasn't got a clear grasp of reality. Maybe that person is on this journey for wrong reasons. Motive is very, very important in all of this. And of course, esoteric knowledge, by definition, is very alluring for a lot of people. Even for the intellectual set, who get bored by jumping through the hoops and they want more power. Or just generally, as you say, acquisitive people. People who think that they can get something material out of it. And they're not realizing, because of course there's no actual warning. It's not like you're buying a CD where the warning's right in the front of it, or a drink or alcohol. Unfortunately, when you dabble in occult areas, you're now being tested. And therefore, your motive is going to matter. It ties into what I was saying earlier about the end of the journey. It's like some sort of T.S. Eliot thing where in our endings is our beginnings. You're going to end up meeting yourself again. In a way, it is a little bit like karma. It might be a sort of subset of the karmic idea that you're going to meet that down the line. But even leaving that aside, the idea is that your motives, the reason why you get into something, is in a way going to walk with you, and it's going to skew you, and it's going to lead your path into areas that another person may not walk. That's why I emphasize to the caller how important it is to keep the individual compass in mind and never let that be stolen from you, and never also sell it yourself, because you may walk for a while with other people who are like-minded, but in the end, their road may not go where you want to go, or you may not want to go where they want to go. You see, because there's nothing uniform about any of this. It's a purely mutable thing. And this, I feel, has been lost, and partly because of the influence of religion. It's one of the biggest critiques I have about religion, is that it's so fixed, it's so immutable. They use the promissory note. They say one one Christ, one book, one set of commandments, one set of behavior, one heaven for you all. And remember, when they even, let's take it, what they say, when they promise you the heaven, when a Christian promises you the heaven, we often never think about this, but the heaven that they're promising us is absolutely fixed. All people will enter one zone, and all people will have to do the same rules. Can't we see the regimentation in all of this? The same Savior, the same code, the same church, the same practices, and in the end, the same heaven.